we knew what we were getting with Ruben Amorim.
Is it going to be his undoing, or is it going to be the making of the football club?
He's not building blocks. He's actually knocking his own house down. If I was advising him, I'd tell him to shut the up in the media. I cannot believe that he keeps saying this stuff in public, because he has lost the players.
To just write off this season because you're so stubborn about playing one way, I think is dangerous. I think it's really dangerous.
I think he's been, at best, naive. At worst, a little bit stupid. He's lost, by the way, 10 of his 24 matches. He's lost 6. He's lost 6 at home.
Would United have picked up more victories in this period if Erik ten Hag stayed in charge?
People are fed up of watching them. They are such a bad proposition.
It's not beyond the realms. In fact, I think it's very likely that United's season is over before they run the Cheltenham Gold Cup, and that is shocking.
It's Premier League All Access with me, Sam Matterface. Perry Groves, the former Arsenal winger and talkSPORT's chief football correspondent. Okay, so how did Chelsea get on at the weekend? How did Arsenal get on? How did Manchester United get on in the? This is not great for us, right?
It's not great for the FA. With the greatest respect in the world, you look at the teams left in the quarterfinals. I'm not sure it's what they would have been anticipating. Take nothing away from the teams who've got there; they're there on merit, but it's not looking like a vintage FA Cup, is it?
What are you talking about? I mean, if you're Aston Villa or you're Manchester City or you're Brighton or you're Bournemouth or you're Nottingham Forest or you're Ipswich, because we're recording this on Monday, you know, there's every chance that you can win the FA Cup, Perry, and winning the FA Cup is amazing.
This is what the FA Cup's all about. It's not the elite FA Cup. It's about all those teams that have got a chance to win it in the knockout phases.
So interesting. It is a little bit different this year, isn't it? You know, that's okay. That's good. Crook's disappointed because Manchester United went out on penalties yesterday. We'll get to that very shortly. In highlights of the weekend, what was your big highlight of the weekend, Crook? What did you enjoy the most about the FA Cup this weekend?
What did I enjoy the most about the FA Cup? Plymouth making Man City squirm for a little bit, probably. That was the nearest we got to a shock. I enjoyed being at Villa Park on Friday night. I thought the atmosphere was brilliant, and Cardiff gave a really good account of themselves.
Yeah. Perry, what did you enjoy the most?
I'll tell you what, I was down at Bournemouth Wolves, right, which was a brilliant FA Cup tie. Bournemouth were fantastic, even though obviously went to extra time. I saw, you know, we got these set-piece coaches now. You know what I mean? So apparently it's a new thing, set pieces, right? I saw the most innovative kickoff I've ever seen. In the second half, Bournemouth kicked off, right? They rolled it back to Antoine Semenyo. He flicked it up in the centre circle and booted it, and I'm not exaggerating, about 250 foot up in the air. So by the time it landed in Wolves' box, that means Evan Nilsson could get on the end of it. I've never seen an avid kickoff. Honestly, it was, you know, when you look at it and you just think, have I just seen that right? It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant.
He's been linked with a move to Liverpool, Antoine Semenyo. Is that what's coming to Anfield next season under Arne Slot? You never know. Maybe that's the kind of innovation that they're looking for up there. Really kick them on to the next level. It was a huge weekend of FA Cup action. So let's get stuck in and let's start at Old Trafford. Manchester United won, Fulham won. United booted out the FA Cup. They booted out after Joshua Zirkzee missed the penalty. Victor Lindelof missed a penalty right at the very end of what was, let's be generous and say, a meandering game. There you go. That's me being kind about yesterday's match between Fulham and Manchester United. I was a little bit disappointed in Fulham, really, to be honest with you, Crook, because I thought that they had a great chance to sort of grasp this moment in history.
I thought they were average, and United were worse, which tells you where United are at the moment. But I agree with you. I feared a Fulham victory just because of how poor United have been, particularly at home. I think they're having a good season under Marco Silva, but they didn't have to play to the best of their capabilities to get themselves through, and that is a pretty damning indictment of Manchester United. I thought Højlund again floundered up front. You can't keep picking strikers who haven't scored for 18 games. I think Garnacho should have started. He injected a bit of pace and actually was the one United player who looked like he could cause issues in the Fulham defensive third when he came on. Bruno Fernandes comes out with some credit. Matthijs de Ligt, I think, probably had one of his strongest games in the United shirt, but they just don't create chances. They don't look like they're going to score goals. I think Onana makes the crowd and the defenders in front of him a nervous wreck, and if we had a fit backup goalkeeper, he probably wouldn't have played. So Yeah, a lot of issues when it comes to Manchester United. They've got Sociedad in the Europa League this week with just the type of team that Ruben Amorim wants his team to be, full of energy, high pressing, legs in midfield. So it's not beyond the realms. In fact, I think it's very likely that United's season is over before they run the Cheltenham Gold Cup, and that is shocking, really.
Even by Manchester United's low standards, which this has certainly been over the course of the last few months, this was a terrible watch, Perry. What Crook and I were sort of discussing last night when we were watching the game, we were sort of texting each other saying, what I don't really understand is why they're so bad. There's a lot of the same players that were there under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Erik ten Hag. Yes, they've moved out what were so-called the bad boys causing trouble in the dressing room. Yet they're even worse than they were 6 months ago. Now, I'm not naive to think that Ruben Amorim is thinking about the long-term future. I know what he's doing. He's trying to put the building blocks in place for next season and beyond. But at the same time, I just don't get why they are so bad. I don't get what's happened.
Sam, it's really, really simple. He's not building blocks. He's actually knocking his own house down. If I was advising him, I'd tell him to shut up in the media. He keeps coming out. He said that it's the worst Man United team in history. It's the players' fault that 250 people have lost their jobs, whatever. In any environment you go into in the workplace, if you go in there and you let the people work, if you know that they're not good enough and they're going to be out the door, half of them will stop working. If your players are no different, and it shouldn't. You should have your own responsibility when you're playing, to give 100%. But Sam, Crook, you know what players are like. 10 or 15 of those players look at him thinking, I'm not going to be here, so I'm not going to run through brick walls for him. So I think he's been, at best, naive, at worst, a little bit stupid to keep coming out. Because what you do, Sam, when you go in, you use those players for that short term. You know he wants to play his 3-4-3 formation. You use them until you gradually ease them out and it becomes like an evolution. So I cannot believe that he keeps saying this stuff in public because he has lost the players. The players aren't... He's lost, by the way, 10 of his 24 matches. He's lost 6. He's lost 6 at home, which is absolutely ridiculous for a manager of his stature going in and trying to get that bounce. So I'd tell him to shut up in the media.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because if it wasn't Manchester United, if there wasn't this constant stream of people that were quite desperate to buy tickets to go and see them, just to get a glimpse of them and say they've been to Old Trafford, it wouldn't be sold out, right? That's true. There's people I know that have tickets that go there on a week-to-week basis, and they're selling their tickets for you. You can do this thing on your apps now, where you can just sort of sell your season ticket for a game or whatever back to the club, and the club will then sell it or whatever. But because there's a constant stream of people coming through the door, it doesn't look as bad as it is, which is that people are fed up of watching them. They're fed up. People who go and watch Manchester United, they'll be the stalwarts that go there every week, and they've done a brilliant job actually to retain as many people walking through the door as they do. But they are such a bad proposition. If you've got anything to do at the weekend and you've got a choice of entertainment, you ain't choosing them. You just ain't. You just don't want to go and watch them. And it's interesting what Perry says about Ruben Amorim, because I think he is dismantling the house. He is saying, right, we're going to go forward. But is it a house that needs dismantling right now? Well, I suppose he's got no choice in the fact that he started that project, so he's got to continue it. But is it going to be his undoing, or is it going to be the making of the football club? Because they do have a big match on Thursday night against Real Sociedad in the last 16. Real Sociedad blitzed by Barcelona at the weekend. But what chances have Manchester United got in this game?
Well, as I say, I think this is the worst possible draw they could have got. It was them or RZ. I think RZ, you'd be confident over 2 legs United would come through. But Sociedad have got the weapons to hurt United. They've got Zubamendi, and we saw the impact that he made in the European Championship final. He's going to end up at Arsenal or maybe Real Madrid in the summer. They've got goal scorers in the team, and they've just got legs, and United don't have legs. And I think Perry's point is a brilliant one, and it's divided opinion amongst United fans. There are some who say, look, we knew what we were getting with Ruben Amorim. He's right. He's got to mould the team in his image, and if that means that the rest of the season is a miserable experience, then so be it. But I tell you what, that puts a lot of pressure on him at the start of next season, because presumably he's going to get players in the summer that can play his way, and he's going to have to hit the ground running. Well, he has to, because otherwise, what's the point? If he
where
doesn't,
they get the money from for that?
Well, they're going to have to get rid of a few, aren't they? And you know,
How are they going to do that?
They do tend to find money down the back of a sofa, United. If there isn't a plan for the summer that sees 3 or 4 go out and 3 or 4 Amorim type players coming in, I don't think it'll be Victor Gyökeres, by the way. I don't think they're going to be shopping in that particular supermarket. Then it's pointless because this manager is not going to get the best out of this group of players with the way he wants to play. And there is an argument that between now and the end of the season, actually, you can't just write it off because you've still got to sell tickets. Every Premier League place is worth a few extra million quid, which United need. You've got to go as deep as you can in the Europa League. It's a massive chance to retain the FA Cup. You know, I joked about it at the top of the podcast, but most of the big guns have gone out. So to just write off this season because you're so stubborn about playing one way, I think is dangerous. I think it's really dangerous. And the question now being asked, Perry, would United have picked up more victories in this period if Erik ten Hag stayed in charge? Stats show they probably would.
They wouldn't have picked up any less, would they? So,
No.
But the whole club is rotten. That goes from Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir Dave Brailsford. Obviously, unbelievably intelligent businessmen and intelligent in other sports, but they're showing they have no idea how a football club / business is run. They have no idea because the fabric of your football club are the people that work there on a day-to-day basis, whether it's at Old Trafford or the administrative buildings or down in the canteen or down at the training ground. The fans that go in there. I'm not talking about, Sam's right about the tourist fans. I'm talking about the die-hard Manchester United fans.
Of which there are loads who go and they show their support and they stay to the end, even when I'm not joking. I go to Old Trafford so much, and I cannot believe that they get so much support from their crowd. I mean, the United fans are so good to them because they don't deserve it half the time.
Yeah, but the thing is, as you know, we've seen about the leaking roof. The whole club is leaking. The whole club, and what Ratcliffe and Browse have done is they've actually created more holes. This club isn't together all the way through, from top to bottom.
I can't work out whether or not they are, as you say, very good businessmen and geniuses, and they know exactly what they're doing. They know they have to destroy in order to build, or whether or not they're absolutely stupid.
Do you know what, Tam? Crookie, massive Man United fan. Every time that you read something about Manchester United or you hear an interview, you must read it and listen to it and think, oh no, please don't be doing that. Please don't be saying that. Don't be writing that. There's no togetherness there. And Ruben Amorim, I know he's trying to implement his own style, his own philosophy, but if you're a player of any caliber, are you definitely telling me that you're going to look at Manchester United at this particular time? They could finish without exactly, what could they finish? 14th, 15th?
Well, they could finish 17th, really, couldn't
right.
they? Let's be
But
honest.
so you're telling me that any player of any stature can go to Manchester United at this particular time? No, he's not.
No, agreed.
Well, I still think that Manchester United will have a lure for some players. I also think that Ruben Amorim won't be shopping in the sort of ego market. He'll be shopping in the market that gets players in to play his system, and he'll already have an idea of the ones that he wants. I mean, in the summer, they were offered the chance to re-sign Danny Welbeck, and that might have been a very good idea.
No, we're first. Arsenal first. Do you mind? No, he's coming back to us. That's where his heart really is.
Newcastle beaten at home by Brighton by 2-1. Newcastle crashing out thanks to Danny Welbeck's extra time winner. I went to this game yesterday, did it for the television. It was absolutely outstanding. What a brilliant football match. I actually went to Aston Villa Cardiff on Friday night, and that was great. This was really top draw. 21 goals in 24 games for Alexander Isak. But Danny Welbeck, what an impact he has had on Brighton this season, Alex.
He's massive. I think we spoke about it in the last couple of weeks that if Danny Welbeck stays fit, this could be a really good end to the season for Brighton, because I think when he wasn't in the team, they missed him. That coincided with their drop-off in form. He's an old-school centre-forward in many ways. He's not a battering ram, but he's a number 9, and he wants to play up front. He wants to get in the box. He wants to score goals. It was a brilliant finish, so calm under pressure in that cauldron that is St James's Park. And I think when you talk about possible contenders for the FA Cup, it's a good draw for Brighton in the next round at home. They've got a brilliant chance of getting back to Wembley and maybe righting the wrongs of a couple of years ago when they probably should have beaten Manchester United in that semi-final, but froze a little bit on the day. I think you have to praise Fabian Herzler for the way that he's bounced back from that 7-0 defeat. And there is a togetherness at Brighton, in contrast to what Perry's been talking about, and Manchester United. And they're in a great vein of form. I fancy them to win this game. again, I know you're going to accuse me of banging the same drum. I just felt Newcastle might have one eye on that League Cup final, and therefore it was a good chance for Brighton. He named a strong team. Eddie Howe took a bit of a risk with Isak, which I don't think any of us were particularly expecting. And on the subject of the League Cup final, Anthony Gordon, what are you thinking, fella? Honestly, you're going to miss the chance now to play a showpiece final against the team you support as a boy. For what? The offside flag was up. The game had stopped. What are you doing, you moron?
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and look through the game, and you've made a lot of points there. The first one was that Isak obviously has a bit of an injury. He came off during the second half. Obviously, by that time, I think they'd already lost Anthony Gordon to the red card, which is a bit of an issue too. He seems to get frustrated there because there was a tussle. John Paul Van Hecke can wind anybody up, by the way. He is pretty good at doing that. But he seemed to have just sort of snapped there in the moment. I don't think it was a violent sort of swipe out, punch in the face type incident. I thought it was just a push in the side of the face. But that's not going to get overturned. And if that is going to be maintained as a 3-game ban, Perry, he's going to miss the Carabao Cup final. So you've lost one chance of going to Wembley in the FA Cup by losing the match. And you've lost a great chance of winning the Carabao Cup final by losing possibly Isak and definitely Gordon for the final.
Yeah, I think with Isak, he'll be in his Winnebago, when he with his silk robe on, when he with his carpet slippers, he'll just say, "Look, don't go anywhere near a training pitch, or a ball for that period of time until obviously the fun." With Anthony Gordon, like Crookie is probably right, but it was just petulance. It was just so ridiculously unnecessary, right? And if you're gonna, it's the old thing, you get it sent off, make it worthwhile. I know it's a bit old school, but even for that, it's like, really. And talking about Brighton, talking about cultures at football clubs, right? So Fabian Hertzler is younger than Ruben Amorim, right? He's probably,
younger than Danny Welbeck.
But it's the way that Fabian Hertzler has managed those senior players and the younger players, because Danny Welbeck leads by example on and off the pitch. So that sets your example and your culture to the younger players. And his finish from Solly March, who I think is going to be massive for Brighton. He's just coming back, isn't he, from a long injury, and they're just easing him back in. And Solly March is someone who gives you even more control. And you can the wide areas with Mitoma and Minter. Like, not only are they brilliant going forward, here's one for Man United players. They actually track back. Their recovery runs are actually quite quick.
Well, one of the things they do brilliantly when they're in possession, they play with a 4, and then as soon as they lose possession, that Minte will drop back and play in that sort of double right back position in order to sort of help out the defence. So they almost go back into a 5. It's an excellent hybrid formation, which Hertzler has got working. He made a massive mistake when they went to Nottingham Forest the other week, right? He admits that. He got his game plan. Perry and I brought the story to everybody on the Sunday session that he stood at the training ground the Monday after the Nottingham Forest game with his plan of the match in his hand and set fire to it in front of the players, right? It was brilliant. It's a great story, but also it sort of is a bit of humbleness from him to say, yeah, I absolutely messed up there. But if you look at the run just before that and just after that game, this is a team that have won 8 of the last 10 matches. They are in fantastic form. And Danny Welbeck was talking about this in the build-up to the game, saying, look, do you know what? We started like this at the beginning of the season. I think I remember on our preview podcast, I tipped them to get into the top 4 this season. And they should have been in there. They should be there because they took their eye off the ball at the end of September, beginning of October, start of November, where they lost games or threw away. They didn't really lose that many matches, but they threw away points in matches which they should have won. And if they hadn't have done that, we'd be talking about them in the same breath that we talk about Nottingham Forest. And I think that's a source of disappointment and maybe fuel for the rest of the season for them because they are within touching distance of those Champions League places still.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the fixtures actually to see what the running is like for Brighton. Obviously, Fulham this weekend live on talkSPORT 2. Perry and I will be there for that one. They've got to go to Man City.
They've got 3 huge games against European rivals in the next few matches.
Yeah, because they've got Villa coming up as well. But you look at April, actually, apart from that Villa game, Palace away, all right, that's difficult because it's a derby. Leicester, Brentford, West Ham. You get to May, they've got Wolverhampton Wanderers. So there's winnable fixtures there. They play Newcastle at home in May, and Liverpool at home, penultimate game of the season. Liverpool might be champions by then, so it might not be as difficult a game as it looks on paper. So I still think it's there for Brighton. As I say, if Welbeck can stay fit, because he's so important, he's such a leader, then I think they're going to win a lot of games between now and the end of May.
What did you make of the semi-automated offside ruling out Fabian Schär's goal, Perry Groves?
Well, at least it didn't take very long. I mean, we'll talk about Bournemouth and Wolves later on. Do you know what? I know the offside rule. I've said it. I've been going on about it. It's got to be changed, because you go to stadiums to see fantastic bits of skill, it was a fantastic finish from Fabian Schär, wasn't it, on the volley, first time as it come across him. And to be given offside by, what was it, his left shoulder? Or
what's interesting, I think, there is that when you're a kid, right, you're told, bend your run, okay? So he's done this brilliant thing where he's sort of pushed an opponent, sort of like bumped into an opponent to force him back, and then sort of creates a bit of space for him to dip the shoulder. Now, when you're at school, when you're in your first steps in coaching, if you're a forward player, they tell you, Perry, don't they? Bend your run, bend your run. Make sure you stay onside until the last minute, then go, like that. And he has timed his run almost to perfection. He's just leaning into the sort of space behind the defender. Now, his feet are very much onside, but the top of his body, just the tiniest bit of his shoulder, which is beyond the T-shirt line, apparently, is offside. And that denies Newcastle a place in the quarterfinals. I'm not sure that's what offside was for. I know it's an accurate decision. I know 10,000 limb tracking movements have been now analysed by the semi-automated offside technology. I know there's 30 cameras that are 100 frames per second, so it's so much more accurate than the previous line drawing system. I'm all for that, and I get it, and I know it's 100% or 98%, 99%, whatever, clear that it was offside. But should it be offside? Arsene Wenger wants to change the law so that if your feet are in an onside position, you're onside. I kind of agree with that.
Sam, I've said it for years, and on shows, and I think if we change that any part of your legal goal scoring body is onside, it's onside. Because you mentioned about leaning, right? 9 times out of 10, it's always going to favour the defender, because the defender's coming out and he's leaning going that way, and the forward's coming in and he's leaning going the other way. So your upper torso is going to favour defense. And there's a lot of time you see games, Crookie and Sam, there's a lot of times where there's lazy defending and they get away with it. So I don't, that's not what offside was brought in for. It was brought in initially to stop forward from cheating, wasn't it? And just basically goal hanging.
Yeah, crazy. I actually think I quite like the way they operated, apart from one incident at the weekend. Eventually, after we got to sort of out the teething problems, it worked quite well. But it was one of those where you just think, God damn, we really are finding the tiniest margins to try and rule out these goals. And I think that's really what we want. So I can understand why Newcastle fans are very upset by that. One of the things I did say as I went into the start of extra time, though, was I really hope that it is a bit of skill that wins the game rather than a mistake, because you could see with Lamptey being sent off for a heavy tackle, Belieber crashing into people and inviting a red card, Gordon being sent off. There was a couple of other instances as well where I think Fabian Schär could have been yellow carded once or twice, so it was starting to get to that sort of stage where we could have more mistakes, more problems. It could be more, so it could be settled by someone making an error rather than someone producing a bit of skill. Should we move on to Saturday's action now? Because you two really want to talk about Bournemouth Wolves, don't you? Let's get to Manchester City versus Plymouth and Bournemouth Wolves from the weekend. Well, I don't think there's loads to talk about in these two games. I think there's a lot to talk about in Palace Millwall. Can we start there? Because I think that was arguably one of the most ridiculous challenges I have ever seen. And I don't know about you, but the thing that comes to my mind, everyone can say Liam Roberts was ridiculous. It was a mistake. He shouldn't have done it. You can litigate against it if you want. You can say it's the worst challenge ever. You can say he was caught up in the emotion, whatever you want. What worries me more than anything else is that Michael Oliver didn't even send him off in the first place. I don't even think he gave a foul. He played on because he thought there was an advantage. Ridiculous.
Yeah, and this underlines this big issue, and Perry and I were talking about this last night. Neither of us are massive advocates of VAR. I know you were from the start, but even you at times are struggling to defend the indefensible. it's referees not taking responsibility on the pitch because they know they've got the backup option of someone else watching the TV studio. That should have been a very simple decision for a referee as experienced as Michael Oliver. The fact he's missed it, as you've mentioned, I think is a massive concern, and it's a fundamental flaw with the way that we've used the technology in this country. When it came in, we were told it wouldn't be about re-refereeing games. Well, it is about re-refereeing games because Michael Oliver has felt that he doesn't need to make the decision because someone else is going to do it for him, and I think that's really poor. I did Google Roberts actually after he took a bit of a battering over the weekend, and to check how old he was, because I thought, well, is this a young kid who's just got swept up in the emotion of a cup tie? He's 30. He's played a lot of football, so you can't defend him on that. I don't think he's gone out to hurt Mateta, but as a goalkeeper, if you go crashing into that kind of challenge, you risk doing damage. So I thought it was really poor from his point of view, but not great from the ref either.
Do you know the scary thing, boys, about Michael Oliver is it's not the advantage, whatever. We see all these games where if there's an aerial clash where the referee thinks there might be a head injury, they blow the whistle straight away. There was no advantage. You do it for your head injury, and Michael Oliver hasn't been the same since he got the Lewis Skelly sending off, obviously at Wolves. He's not as confident, nowhere near as confident. And you said there, if he can't see in real time that that's sending off, he needs players go through periods in their careers, where they're not quite on form, lose a bit of confidence. I think Michael Oliver has lost a lot of confidence.
Is he second guessing himself?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, because that's in every aspect. And he'll say, I tried to play advantage. You go, no, you don't play advantage because someone's been booted in the head. You can't play advantage there. And from Liam Roberts' point of view, people are equating it, to the Schumacher-Battiston one, right? The only thing I'd say with Liam Roberts is if you look at the replays, he's out of control, he's reckless, he shouldn't be doing it, but he actually takes the ball first. So he's generally trying to play the ball, even though it's a ridiculous challenge, whereas Schumacher had no intention of play. He went to hurt Battiston, where I don't think Liam Roberts initially had that intention in his head. And the good thing about it is that Mateta, trust me, boys, that could have been a lot worse than a laceration behind you. I think it was 25 stitches.
We've seen Ryan Mason have a serious injury, which basically ended his career. We've seen Raul Jimenez take years to come back from the head injury that he sustained. No one wants to see anybody in that situation. And as much as I don't believe that Liam Roberts decided to leave the ground and kick him in the head to cause him damage, I do think that Liam Roberts does need to be punished quite severely for his tackle, in order to send a deterrent to everybody else, to make sure that everybody knows that it doesn't matter if you play the ball, you cannot challenge in that manner. Because his foot, I don't know what yoga that guy's doing, but his foot was so high, it was literally almost above his own head. Jean-Philippe Mateta is a big lad. He's not small. He's not my height. He's up there with a Crookmeister. You have to be pretty athletic to kick that guy in the head. So I thought it was a really poor challenge. I don't think you can say anything other than that, really. And I do think he'll end up getting a longer ban than maybe just the one that comes with the red card. And I think the FA have already sort of decided to do that. On the football side, it was a good win for Palace.
Brilliant header from Eddie Nketiah. He made the header look very, very easy, because as you're sort of going backwards and you get the right purchase and he redirects it. So that's his second goal in a couple of games you needed, because I think he went 426 games without a goal, didn't he, since he been at Arsenal going to Palace. So
that's what Arsenal do to their strikers, Perry. They just stop take the sort of the hormone that puts the ball in the back of the net out of you.
Well, he hasn't pulled his hamstring, so that's a bonus.
It was a bit of a weekend of madness, though, wasn't it, really? Because Bournemouth and Wolves played a 1-1 draw. Bournemouth largely, I think, were the better team for the 90 minutes. And then Wolverhampton Wanderers ended up taking them to penalties. Evan Nilsson kicked off the scoring. Good goal, actually, from him, I thought. Kirkes, again, we can talk all day about the VAR check. In fact, we could talk now about this VAR check, right? And whatever time we start the conversation, we still won't feel the whole time that it took to clear that check and delay that goal. I don't actually know why he's disallowed it. I still don't know why they've disallowed it. I know it's offside, but I don't think it's offside. I just don't. I don't think there was enough clear evidence to give it offside. You can't prove it's not a goal, so give the goal.
Yeah, but I've got a theory about that. Perry was there, so he'll tell you just how ridiculous the whole thing was. But at one stage, the players were getting balls on the pitch and keeping themselves warmed up as if there was a stoppage for a serious injury. I think once you get to 7-8 minutes where you're checking a goal, you almost have to rule it out. Otherwise, people are going to say, "Well, what were they checking for 7 or 8 minutes?" I think they guessed. I don't think they know. But it gets so long that they have to rule it out.
Do you know what? It was that bad. We all know Dance really well in Danta, didn't we? And he's one of the most laid back, isn't he? Sort of non-aggressive people you ever meet. You should listen to his rant that he went off on a rant. I think the rant lasted about 3.5 minutes about VAR because we're not VAR fans. No one in the stadium had a clue what was going on. They were saying checking for handball, right? And it's CSI Stockley Park where they're looking for Huyson and Kirkes at the far post. So that's inconclusive. So they were thinking, well, it's a goal because you keep looking at it, and you can't tell whether it is, whether it isn't. So you go with, is it the minimum interference for maximum effect, right, on the pitch? Then they go, I'll tell you what, let's have a look for offside. No one in the stadium, there's 11,000, right, the Vitality. Even Wolves fans over in the far corner, not one player, none of the coaches, none of the fans in there even thought in their heads that might be offside. There was no appeals from the Wolves players, nothing whatsoever. And as Crookie said, then all of a sudden, you get both sets of players doing a bit of keep ball with a ball each. Then Sam Barrett, the referee, he's getting loads of stick and he's thinking, hold on, don't shoot them. It's nothing to do with me. He had no idea, honestly, what was going on. He walked over to the technical area to explain to the two managers, by the way, I think that they're checking. No, it's not. Oh, no, hold on a minute. Is it offside? I'm not sure what it is. 7 minutes. And it's like going to see a play, right, at the theatre, and you get right to the end where you're going to get like a whodunit, and then the actors just go off for 7 minutes, and everybody sits there in the theatre and goes, what's going on? And then they just come back on, and they just carry on. It was a nonsense. Honestly, it was actually embarrassing.
8 minutes and 30 seconds in the end by the time that it was eventually ruled out the goal. But I still couldn't work out how it could possibly be offside because I thought that the ball that came off, I can't remember if it was Kirkes and onto Howson.
Kirkes onto Howson, yeah.
Kirkes, that it seemed to go backwards, right? So if he's behind the ball, then he can't be offside anyway. So I honestly, I couldn't get my head around it, and I you know when you're like rewinding it several times just to sort of try and see what it is that they've ruled it out for. I was like, that's not clear to me that that's definitely offside. But at the initial ball that came over, I mean, you couldn't see the point of contact, so it was impossible to sort of measure that. I just don't know why on earth they decided to rule it out because that meant that Bournemouth went on a longer journey to get to the quarterfinals, but more importantly, it meant that Cunha was still on the pitch to get sent off later on in the game. He got sent off in extra time following sort of squaring up and a headbutt aimed at Kirkes. I mean, this is no surprise to us because we know he's a little bit of a hothead, but this was just utterly stupid from him. He just got them back into the game with a wonderful goal, and then he does something so idiotic that I think will stop him from going to a very, very top club.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to write about this in the notebook this week, actually. We know that Arsenal have cast admiring glances in his direction, but they'll do their checks on his character and his personality, and they'll see incidents like this. And I think Mikel Arteta will quickly retreat from that potential deal. It's not the first time he's got himself in trouble. We remember the scenes at the end of Gary O'Neill's last game in charge when he ripped the glasses off a member of the Ipswich backroom staff and obviously got punished by the FA for that. I wonder how long the ban will be, actually. He'll definitely miss Everton at home, Southampton away, and then West Ham at home. If he gets any extra punishment, Ipswich away is the next game after that. And that looks like a massive match, doesn't it, for Wolves? If Ipswich can pick up some points during Cunha's absence, and he is the trump card when it comes to them avoiding relegation, all of a sudden we might have a relegation scrap on, whereas we thought maybe it was done.
Well, the big difference between the two teams, Ipswich and Wolves, is Matthias Cunha, right? That's what we've been saying for the whole of the season. He was he was not was he not sent off in that game against Ipswich earlier in the season? He wasn't sent off, was he? It was banned retrospectively for his behaviour after the
He
final
was.
whistle.
But does that mean they can add an extra game onto this suspension because he's already been banned once?
I think that it depends. Did it go down as a red card or did it go down as just a disciplinary action afterwards? If he gets 2 red cards in a season, then the ban gets extended anyway. So, I mean, he could be looking at a 5-match ban here at worst, Perry, couldn't he? In which case, they're in massive trouble.
Do you know what? In that incident where he got sent off, he could have got sent off 3 times. He could have got sent off for the right forearm where he tries to smash Kirkes around his face. Then he kicks him. Then he puts his head on him, right? And then he still loses it afterwards. And people now forget. You know what the shame is? They forget about the worldie. They forget about the unbelievable strike that he had from like 30 yards. And he just looked around and just said, that's what I do every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but he's not worth the hassle if he does all the other stuff.
The thing is as well, I was talking to Crookie last night. He's like the best player in the playground where he doesn't do any really defensive duties for Wolves because they know that he can just rest himself up. You know, like when Jack Grealish was at Aston Villa, where you go, you have a little rest, mate, and you know you'll get some brilliance and you'll save us. He could be known, and this isn't exaggerating, as the player that contributed most to get Wolves relegated. Because as Crookie said there, Wolves were set there 5 points clear, aren't they, from safety. With him in the team, they would have been 100% safe. Now you're Ipswich. You look at that thinking, do you know what? We got half a chance. If we can pick a win up, we got half a chance of getting ourselves out of this now. And that's just for his petulance. And that's why you're both right, 100%. One of the big boys won't touch him because of that petulance.
And he's obviously been at big clubs before. He's been at Atletico Madrid. He's been at the mighty Hertha Berlin, and it hasn't worked for him. And I think some of that is down to do with his attitude. And, you know, Gary O'Neill spent a lot of time trying to get his attitude right. Victor Pereira doing the same thing as well. Manchester City 3, Plymouth 1. City eventually ended Plymouth's cup run. City had a flurry of chances in the first half, but didn't really make any breakthrough. They looked a little bit impotent. Plymouth got on the score sheet with Talavierov's brilliant header from the first corner of the game. City struck back just before the stroke of half-time. Nico O'Reilly, the star of the show, I think. A man of few words, but of good talent, I think, Crook.
Yeah, and they needed him, didn't they? Because as has become the way with Man City this season, they don't do it easily. They tend to make it difficult for themselves. It's been a really kind FA Cup draw to this point. But they've got a proper challenge now in the quarterfinal. We've just been talking about Bournemouth. Had that second goal been allowed, then they'd have won pretty comfortably against Wolves. They've already beaten City at home this season, one of their most impressive performances of the campaign. So City are going to have to up it. And as he tends to do in the FA Cup, he named a strong team, Pep Guardiola, but still made hard work against championship opponents. I think they'll lose to Bournemouth, and I think Perry's of that belief as well.
I think that's the worst draw they could have had, Sam, was Bournemouth. We know what they're like at the Metallic. They were the best team against Wolves by far. But this was like the Dukes of Hazzard, wasn't it, in goal for Plymouth? He was on fire, the Plymouth goalkeeper, which you need to be. And I just want to flag up, I think, was the best assist of the weekend for Erling Haaland's nutmeg when he just rolls it across to Kevin De Bruyne. So he had to bring him on, didn't he? Just, the cavalry came out to the rescue. And that O'Reilly's first goal, was in the first minute of injury time, added on time at the end of the first half.
Killer.
That was absolutely massive, because trust me, if they go in 1-0 down at half time, that becomes a miles more difficult situation to try and rescue themselves with. So that goal was huge.
Yep, absolutely right. They've got. The draw is pretty set up for a lot of semi-finals between Premier League clubs, and I think Aston Villa, Manchester City is probably the two biggest clubs in it. It means that Brighton and Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth were all having their eye on the possibility of getting to an FA Cup final, mainly for the first time for a long time. But for Brighton, they haven't done it since 1983. They want to win it. I don't think Nottingham Forest have won it since 1959. They're desperate to get in there as well. It's we could have a bit of history being made this year in the FA Cup. Big games in the Champions League this week, live on talkSPORT. I'll be doing PSV Eindhoven against Arsenal Tuesday night. I'm looking forward to that, Perry.
Yeah, can't wait.
Yep, thought you might be. And Wednesday night, we've got action from the Champions League as well. And Thursday night, we've got all the Europa League games and the Conference League games as well that kick off at 5:45. Crookie, what one are you doing? You're doing Tottenham, aren't you?
Club Brugge on Tuesday night, Bayern Munich on Wednesday, and then I will be at the darts on Thursday, courtesy of
You're not doing your usual Europa League thing, no?
No, I will be doing my best to avoid Manchester United against Sociedad. I'm going to try and have a nice evening.
Just having a night off for the darts, is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, another night off. Right, okay. Well, you enjoy that.
You got more chance getting finishes at the darts than what Man United have.
I've got no comeback because you're right, honestly.
He's more likely to hit the bullseye, isn't he? Right, okay. Thank you very much, Crookster. Cheers, Perry Groves. We will see you very soon. We'll be back at the end of the week to preview all the weekend's footballing action as the Premier League returns.